Bible fell open one night, and something steady pulled me toward the light. I didn't know how I'd make it through, but every single morning mercy was new. And I looked up one day and the storm was gone. Found myself still here, still holding on. Still standing on the solid ground, still standing where he never let me down. Been through the fire, walked through the rain, still standing in his name. Not because I'm stronger than before, but because he carried me when I hit the floor. Every season tried to pull me under, still standing, still standing. I sat with grief in a quiet house, talked to Jesus when I couldn't figure out how the pieces ever were gonna fit. But he stayed right there, he never quit. I've watched the sunrise come after the dark, felt mercy land right in the broken parts. And every scar I'm wearing tells it plain, a faithful God showed up again and again. I didn't earn my way to the other side, grace covered every place I tried to hide. And I woke up one morning and I finally knew who I am standing here. It's all because of you. Still standing on the solid ground, still standing where he never let me down. Been through the fire, walked through the rain, still standing in his name. Not because I'm stronger than before, but because he carried me when I hit the floor. Every season tried to pull me under, still standing, still standing. There were nights I thought the roots were gone, thought I lost too much to carry on. But the same hands that hung the stars in place reached right down and held me in that place. I know hard seasons, they came for me. I know what it costs to fight to believe, but I know my Redeemer and he knows my name. And he never let me walk through the flames alone. So I'll plant my feet right here on holy ground. I'll lift my head and let this truth bring out what was meant to break me. Only help me know the God who holds me will not let me go. Still standing on the solid ground, still standing where he never let me down. Been through the fire, walked through the rain, still standing in his name. Not because I'm stronger than before, but because he carried me when I hit the floor. Every season tried to pull me under, still standing, still still standing. I remember when the nights were long, when I prayed, just trying to hold on. Sat out on the porch in the dark alone, talking to Jesus like he was right at home. The back roads blurred through the tears that I cried. I wore a brave face, but I hurt inside. Had my mama's Bible in my trembling hands, asking God if he still had a plan. I couldn't see the morning from where I stood, didn't understand it all, but he was good. One step at a time, he walked me through the night, and I came out the other side, still in the light. He brought me through the fire and the rain. He brought me through the heartache and the pain, when I didn't have the strength to make But he met me in the quiet, met me in the mess, showed up in the smallest things I'd never guess. A neighbor's kindness on a hard, hard day, a sunrise golden telling me to stay, an old familiar verse that hit me new. That's just how Jesus does what Jesus does. He comes through. I didn't see it clearly then, but now I do. Every closed door was his mercy coming through. He was writing something there all along, and he carried every piece I couldn't hold. He brought me through the fire and the rain. He brought me through the heartache and the pain. When I didn't have the strength to make it on my own, he brought me through. He brought me home. Not a single valley did I walk alone. Every broken road led right back to the throne of the enemy meant to leave me ruined by. He brought me through. He brought me through. Brought me through There were moments I let go of the rope, when I ran out of faith and I ran out of hope. But he held what I couldn't hold on to then, and he loved me back to life again. I have stood in the wreckage of what I thought was mine, watched him turn the ruins into something fine. I've cried on that porch till the stars went dim, and found every single morning still belonged to him. So let me tell you what I know to be true. When the world falls apart, he will carry you. He is faithful in the valley, faithful in the flame, yesterday, today, forever. He is still the same. He brought me through the heartache and pain. When I didn't have the strength to make it on my own, he brought me through. He brought me home. Not a single valley did I walk alone. Every broken road led right back to the throne of the enemy meant to leave me ruined by. He brought me through. He brought me through. He brought me through. I know he brought me through. He brought me through. Every single time he came and saw me through. Still standing here with proof enough to say he brought me through. He brought me through. He brought me through. He brought me through. I've sat on this old porch in the pouring rain, watched the lightning split the sky and called his name. held my worn out Bible like a lifeline tight, prayed my quiet prayers straight into the night. There were back roads I drove crying, lost my way, but somehow every morning came another day. He was there in every valley, every breaking point. He was steady when I wasn't, never missed the joint. And I know now what I'm made of, standing in the light, 'cause he carried me through darkness in the morning bright. I am stronger than the storm. I've been bent but not been broken. Every scar upon my heart is a word that Jesus spoke. And I have stood in the fire, and I came out breathing still. I am stronger than the storm, by nothing but His will. There was a season when my table felt too bare, when I said my prayers loose and wondered if He cared. But I found Him in the silence of a Sunday dawn, in the smell of coffee rising, life still carrying on. I was humble in that valley, down on both my knees, but the roots grew deep and stronger in that breaking breeze. He was writing something holy in the hardest years. He was turning all my losses into something clear. And I rose up slowly, quietly, sure and tall, 'cause the one who holds the sunrise never let me fall. I am stronger than the storm. I've been bent but not been broken. Every scar upon my heart is a word that Jesus spoke. And I have stood in the fire, and I came out breathing still. I am stronger than the storm, by nothing but His will. I remember who I was before the healing came, barely holding on to hope, just whispering His name. But He met me on that back road in the early light, took my trembling hands and said, "Child, you'll be alright." So I walked out of the ashes, left the fear behind the door, put my feet on solid ground now. That's what all the grace was for. I know the storm is not the ending. I know the rain won't have the last say. I know the God who made the sunrise knew my name before the dark days. I'm not shaking, I'm not hiding, I am standing in the clear. He was faithful, He is faithful, and I got nothing left to fear. I am stronger than the storm. I've been bent but not been broken. Every scar upon my heart is a word that Jesus spoke. And I have stood in the fire, and I came out breathing still. I am stronger than the storm, by nothing but His will. I am rooted and I'm grounded in the grace that brought me through. Every morning on this front porch I see His mercies all made new. I'm not the woman that the hard years tried to leave behind in pain. I am stronger, I am standing, I am stronger than the rain. I am stronger than the storm. There were nights I couldn't see past the pain, sitting on my front porch in the pouring rain. Had my worn out Bible open on my knee, whispering, "Lord, I need you, please don't let go of me." The small town got quiet and the lights went low, but something in my spirit said, "Don't let go." I've been down to the ground, but I held on tight. I called out in the dark, and He answered with light. story of His grace. Every valley that I walked through led me to this place. I didn't break, I didn't shatter, didn't fall apart. He was holding every piece of my heart. I didn't break, I went through the fire and the flood and the ache, but by the grace of God, I didn't break. I remember lying still on the cold ground floor, wondering if the woman I was could survive one more. But He knelt right down beside me in that broken space, lifted up my chin and let me see His face. He said, "Child, I didn't bring you all this way to leave. I've been writing your redemption since before you could believe." So I stood up from the ashes, brushed the dust off of my hands, put my feet back on the back road, and I finally learned to stand. I am not what tried to break me. I am not the hardest year. I am not the night I fell apart, or the weight I used to fear. I am every prayer that held me, every morning He came through. I am living proof of mercy. I am what His love can do. I didn't break, I didn't shatter, didn't fall apart. He was holding every piece of my heart. I didn't break, I went through the fire and the flood and the ache, but by the grace of God, I didn't break. I'm still standing on this front porch, watching glory fill the sky, with my worn out Bible open and a grateful heart. And I could have crumbled, could have ended. There were nights it felt that close, but He was closer, always closer, right there when I needed most. I didn't break, no, I didn't break. By the grace of God, I didn't break. I remember when the bottom fell out clean, sitting in the quiet of what used to be. Had my worn out Bible and a cup gone cold, praying on my front porch, barely keeping hold. The small town kept on moving, life rolled on by, but I was standing still, just asking God why. Every road I drove down led me to my knees. Every prayer I lifted trembled in the breeze, but something kept me tethered, something wouldn't let me go. Some steady hand was holding on when I had let go of the road. When I couldn't hold on, You held the line. When the dark came rushing, You held the line. I was losing ground on the steepest climb, but You never moved. You held the line. Every prayer I barely breathed, You heard in time. When I had nothing left, You held the line. They were back roads I traveled just to clear my head, talking out loud to Jesus, talking through the dreaded. There was a winter that was longer than it should have been, where I wore my hurt like a coat beneath my skin. But He showed up in a neighbor's knock, a friend's old song, in the way the sun came breaking through after so long. Every valley had a bottom and He met me there. Every time I lost my footing, He was in the air. And I see now what He was doing in the hardest days. He was holding what I couldn't, clearing out the haze. When I couldn't hold said I never dropped the rope, child, not for one single breath. I was holding you together from the first step to the last. So now I know what faithfulness looks like up close. It looks like being carried when you're needing it most. It looks like every morning that I open my eyes and found His mercies waiting underneath the sunrise. I'm not afraid of hard seasons. I've seen what He can do. He has held His line before and He will hold it through. I am standing on the other side with steady hands raised high. He held the line and I am living proof of why. When I couldn't hold on, you held the line. When the dark came rushing, you held the line. I was losing ground on the steepest climb, but you never moved, you held the line. Every prayer I barely breathed, you heard in time. When I had nothing left, you held the line. Now I'm sitting on this front porch, dawn is breaking slow, with a grateful heart and a peace I come to know. There were years I didn't think I'd make it to this place. Now I'm living in the proof of your relentless grace. You held the line when the whole world failed. You held the line and you held it well. You held the line through the fire and the flood. You held the line with nothing but love. You held the line. You held the line. And I am still here because you held the line. I've walked some roads that tried to take me down, carried heavy things through this old quiet town. Sat beside the embers when the fire burned low, held my worn out Bible in the amber glow. There were nights of darkness pressed against the door, but I knelt down on that floor and prayed once more. I couldn't see the morning from where I was standing there, couldn't find the reason or the way back home again, but something warm was moving through the shadow and the smoke, a presence in the firelight, steady, soft and close. came like the smell of something new after the long refrain. Said, I see you in the fire, and I've been here all along. I was not just watching over you, I was holding you strong. So let the fire come if it's coming. I have seen what it makes. It makes gold out of the grieving. It makes beauty from the ache. I have stood inside the furnace, and I know who stood there too. There was one more in that fire, and that one was you. I am not what the flame took, I am what survived. I am walking in the light now. I am whole and I am alive. Through the firelight, He refined me. Through the fire I found I was standing on unshakable and holy ground. Through the firelight, He found me. Through the firelight, He stayed. When the flames were all around me, He was never far away. I came out on the other side, still breathing unafraid. He walked with me through the firelight, and I was not afraid. Now I'm sitting on this front porch, watching morning fill the hill, with the smell of something newborn and a soul that's finally still. There were seasons made of fire, there were nights I couldn't see, but He never let the firelight take the best of me. Through the firelight, still standing. Through the firelight, still whole. Through the firelight, He carried every broken part of my soul. Through the firelight, through the firelight, He walked with me, and I came through. The storm rolled in without a warning sign, took the things I thought were surely mine. I sat out on my front porch, watching skies turn gray. Held my worn out Bible, didn't know what to pray. This small town felt like strangers all around, but I planted both my knees into the ground. The current pulled so hard I lost my footing there. The wind was loud and I was barely keeping air. But underneath the chaos, underneath the doubt and tide, something wouldn't shift, something held me to the side. I was anchored in You. When the whole world came loose, when the river ran wild and the wind blew through, I was anchored in You. I didn't drift, I didn't drown, I didn't lose. Every time the storm came calling, every time I nearly failed, I was anchored in You, and I held. There were back roads in the dark I nearly missed, seasons where my heart was clenched inside a fist. There was a table I sat alone at cold and long, where I questioned if I'd ever find my song. But He showed up in the neighbor's porch light, warm and low, in a scripture underlined from years ago. I didn't understand the depth of what He laid, didn't know how strong the anchor He had made. But every time the tide rose higher than I thought I'd survive, He was deeper still and holding me alive. I was anchored in You. When the whole world came loose, when the river ran wild and the wind blew through, I was anchored in You. I didn't drift, I didn't drown, I didn't lose. Every time the storm came calling, every time I nearly fell, I was anchored in You, and I held. I've seen the water rise above the window line. I have felt the pull of currents trying to take what's mine. I have whispered in the middle of the night, are you still there? And found him in the stillness, like a hand within my hair. He was never just a safety net I'd hung above the floor. He was woven through the foundation, through the bedrock, through the core. And the seasons that I thought would be the end of who I was were the seasons he was showing me how deep the anchor goes. So let the water rise, I know the depth that holds me fast. Let the thunder shake the sky, I've seen what this can outlast. I have tested what he's made of in the worst of what life brings, and I've come out on the other side, still trusting in these things. That his love is not a feeling that'll fade when times get hard, that his anchor holds through everything and reaches every scar. I am steady, I am settled, I am certain of this truth. There is nothing in this world that breaks what's anchored in you. I was anchored in you when the whole world came loose, when the river ran wild and the wind blew through. I was anchored in you. I didn't drift, I didn't drown, I didn't lose. Every time the storm came calling, every time I nearly fell, I was anchored in you. Now I'm watching from my front porch as the last clouds roll away. There's a gold line on the horizon, and I'm breathing in the day. There were seasons I was certain that the current had me won, but the anchor never wavered, never slipped, never come undone. I was anchored in you through the valley and the flood, through the silence and the sorrow, through the fire and the mud. I was anchored in you when I had nothing left to give. I was anchored in you, and that anchor let me live. Anchored in you, anchored in you, still standing here. Anchored in you. I have sat with empty hands on this old porch when the well ran dry and life fell off its course. Turn the pages of my body, worn and thin, searching for a promise I could lean back in. This small town saw me struggling, saw me low, but it also saw me watching his love show. There were mornings I could barely lift my head. There were nights I held to nothing but a thread. But something always met me in that quiet broken place. Something steady, something gentle, full of grace. I've seen his faithfulness in the darkest of it gone. I've seen his faithfulness reaching to a broken heart. When the road ran out and I had nothing left to bring, I've seen his faithfulness in everything. There were back roads that I traveled, lost and worn, praying through when the evidence of goodness had gone dry. When I sat beside my window in the gray November rain, and I asked him if his promises still held through all this pain. And he didn't send an answer wrapped in thunder or in light. He just sent the soul breaking of another morning bright. He just put my worn out Bible open to the page I'd need. He just sent a friend who knew me just enough to plant a seed. And I started recognizing all the places he had been, all the quieted interventions, all the rescues in between. So now I stand as living witness. I have seen it for myself. His faithfulness is not a theory sitting dusty on a shelf. I have felt it in the valleys, felt it lifting me from low. I have watched it move like sunrise, still surging warm and slow. Tell it on this front porch, tell it down these back roads along, that his faithfulness outlasted every season, every road. I am standing in the proof of it. I am covered in his grace. I have seen his faithfulness, and I have seen face to face. I've seen his faithfulness from the darkest of the dark. I've seen his faithfulness reaching to a broken heart when the road ran out and I had nothing left to bring. I've seen his faithfulness, and there will never be the same. I am standing in the proof of it. I am covered in his grace. I am not who the hard years tried to leave behind in dust. I am everything that heaven learned to trust. I've seen his faithfulness, and I will never be the same. There was a year he tried to take me at the knees. Sat out on my front porch talking to the trees. Had my worn out Bible open in my lap, trying to find a road back on the map. This small town saw me barely holding on, but every morning still the sun came on. The ground beneath me trembled, and I felt it give. There were days I wasn't certain how to live, but something deep inside me wouldn't come undone. Something planted long before the storm had come. I am not shaken. I have been moved, but I am not shaken. I've been pressed down to the bone, but I was never left alone. I am not shaken by the grace of God. There were back roads in the middle of the night, praying through my tears just to find the light. There was a season stripped of everything I knew, where I had nothing left but what was always true. But He showed up in the stillness of a winter dawn, in the turning of a page that kept me holding on. I have stood inside the middle of the roaring, come out knowing what I'm standing for. Every crack the heart is opened up in me, let the light of something stronger in to breathe. I am not shaken. I have been moved, but I am not shaken. I've been pressed down to the bone, but I was never left alone. I am not shaken by the grace of God. I am not shaken. I remember how the shaking felt up close when I lost the things I needed most. When the quiet of this house was way too loud, and I couldn't find His face inside the cloud. But He came in like the morning, sure and low, came in like the ember, slow and steady glow. Sat right down beside me in the hardest place, didn't say a word, just let me feel His grace. And I started to remember what I knew, that the roots don't show, but they go all the way through. So let the wind come, I have felt it before. Let the rain fall, I know what it falls for. Let the hard things come and test what has been made. I have seen what God can build that will not fade. I am not the woman that the shaking tried to break. I am every quiet morning in my wake. I am every prayer that held me to the floor. I'm standing at the threshold of a wide open door. I have been through the trembling, and I came out clear in the one thing I know more than any kind of cost. I am not shaken. I have learned what does not move. I'm standing in His steadiness. I am living in His truth. Not shaken by the breath remember standing at the edge of it all, back against the wall with nowhere left to fall. Had my worn-out Bible pressed against my chest, told the Lord I'd given everything I had known best. The small town couldn't see what I was fighting through, but every quiet morning I brought it back to you. I tried to carry what was never mine to hold, tried to fight a war I couldn't wage alone, but I was wearing myself down to nothing in the field when you stepped in and showed me how to yield. The battle was yours, I was never meant to win it on my own. The battle was yours, and you fought for me down to the bone. I laid it at your feet on that old back road, and you lifted every weight and every load. I just had to learn to let you lead. The battle was yours, and you won it for me. There were back roads I drove, circling the same old fear, bargaining with Jesus through the grief and the tears. There was a night I finally dropped it, let it go, opened up both hands and said, Lord, I don't know. But he met me in the morning, soft and golden white, took the field I couldn't take and stood beside. I've learned the posture of a warrior on her knees is not defeat, it's where the real power breathes. Every time I surrender what I couldn't win alone, I found him already fighting, holding the throne. The battle was yours, I was never meant to win it on my own. The battle was yours, and you fought for me down to the bone. I laid it at your feet on that old back road, and you lifted every weight and every load. I just had to learn to let you lead. The battle was yours, and you won it for me. You won it for me. I remember the exhaustion of the trying, the weight of every sleepless night of crying. I had strategy and willpower in my plans, but none of it was working in my hands. And I read the words, the battle is not yours. It's something in me finally found the door. I put my sword down on that old front porch and let the one who made me take the torch. And he moved like something only heaven sends, went before me to the places I had been, started clearing what I couldn't clear alone, started turning every battlefield to home. So now I know what standing still can mean. It's not giving up, it's trusting what's unseen. It's the boldest kind of faith to drop your fight and watch the God of armies move in light. I am not the one who won this by my strength, I am the one who finally went the length of letting go and watching heaven work, of stepping back and letting God assert that every giant I was facing had a name, and every name already bowed before he came. I am living in the aftermath of one, I am standing in the victory of his son. The battle was never mine to carry to the end, it was always only wholly, fully his. The battle was yours, I was never meant to win it on my own. The battle was yours, and you fought for me down to the bone. I laid it at your feet on that old back road, and you lifted every weight and every load. I just had to learn to let you lead. The battle was yours, and you won it for me. Now I'm sitting on this front porch, watching sunrise paint the hill, and the war that tried to ruin me is somewhere quiet and still. There were seasons full of fighting, swinging hard at things unseen, but the greatest thing I ever did was fall down on my knees. The battle was yours, through the valley through the mud and through the mire, through the nights I couldn't breathe, through the years I couldn't see. The battle was yours, and you fought it just for me. It was yours, it was always yours, and I am free because the battle was yours. I didn't come through clean, I came through warm. Carried more than I was built for, tired and torn. Sat out on my front porch in the fading light, holding on to just enough to make it through the night. This small town saw the cracks along my frame, but every morning I woke up and came. I didn't have the strength to pull myself back up. I didn't have the words, I barely had enough. But something met me right there in the in-between. Something bigger than the best that I could bring. Grace was enough when I had nothing left to give. Grace was enough, it was the reason I still live. When my own two hands came up empty and undone, grace was enough, and grace was more. It covered every crack and every rough when I couldn't be enough. Grace was. There were back roads in the dark I barely drove, conversations with my Jesus raw and low. There was a chapter of my life I'd rather skip, when I learned what it means to lose your grip. But he showed up in the margin of my worn out page, in a word I'd underlined in better days. I had built my self-sufficiency up tall, thought if I worked hard enough I'd never fall. But the grace I found inside the falling taught me more. He covered me like morning light and said, "You don't have to earn your way back here. You were never too far gone for me to hear." So now I wear my coming through as something true. Every scar's just a proof of what grace can do. I am not ashamed of where the road broke down. I am not ashamed of crawling on that ground, because the grace that met me there was not surprised. It was already waiting with its open wide. I am standing in the overflow of what I could not earn. I am living in the lesson that took years to learn. That the ground of grace is solid, it does not give way. That it meets you in the worst and it is still there today. I am free from the performance, free from having to be more. Grace was always only everything I needed it for. Grace was enough when I had nothing left to give. Grace was enough, it was the reason I still live. When my own two hands came up empty and undone, grace was enough. And grace was more than some. It covered every crack and every roof when I couldn't be enough. Grace was. Now I'm sitting on this front porch with my coffee in the dawn, and the woman that I used to be has been graced and carried on. There were years I thought the measure of my worth was what I gave, but the grace that kept on finding me was never something